QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021, Sales Receipt Customization. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are in our test template file. We currently have the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the View dropdown, selecting the Open Windows list. In prior presentations, we've been customizing the invoice, most likely the most customized form. Now we're going to look at the customization of the Create Sales Receipt, probably the second most customized form. Now the invoice and the sales receipt could be provided to the customer. The invoice will be for sure because you're going to be needing to provide it for the customer that for work that was done in the past, which you have not received payment for yet, therefore you have to notify them with the invoice. However, the Create Sales Receipt is going to be something that will be generated in a similar situation because work has been done, but this time we have received payment at the same point in time. You can imagine like a cash register type of situation. Someone brings something up, you get the money and or form of payment, and then you provide the goods or services at that point in time. Therefore, you may or may not provide the receipt at that point because you've already got paid at that point. But this could potentially be something that would be provided to a customer or client, and therefore something that you may want to spend time to customize. Also note that the sales receipt may be something that would be customized and often used when QuickBooks is used for a not-for-profit organization type of form as well. So you could customize this for a not-for-profit organization and rename it to basically a donation type of form. We'll take a look at more of that when we look at the downloading the templates options for that. So then let's go to the lists dropdown. Let's go to the templates lists. So lists and then the templates lists. Now we currently have all the items that we made inactive showing. So I'm going to uncheck that down below. So those have been removed. And now we're taking a look at now if you started a new company file and you have no sales receipt here, then go ahead and jump over to the home page and actually create a sales receipt. Click on the sales receipt here to generate. And then you'll see a template up top that will then be generated, which will be the custom sales receipt. And then if you close out that item, then we go back into the templates. Now we've got the sales receipt template. So we got the custom sales receipt template here. So then we can customize that custom sales receipt template. Few ways we can do that. If we already have one set up, then we can go into it just like we can with the invoice and we can adjust that one. Or we can create a new one and then adjust it from scratch. So we're not going to mess with the one that's currently in place. Or we can download a template for it and then make adjustments to that template. So we'll first create a new one and adjust that. So this is going to be the default. I'm going to say, hey, I don't want to mess up the default. If I had already adjusted it and wanted to vary it from there, I can right click on it and say that I want to duplicate this item, or I can click on the sales receipt here and then I can select the rise up and then I want to duplicate it, or we can simply make a new one. So I'm going to make a new one here, a new template. And this one's going to be a sales receipt type of template. So then I'm going to say, let's open that up. And we have the similar kind of basic options. So I'll go through some of the basic options here. We'll do that a little bit more quickly because they're similar to the invoice, although the screens and the layout is a little bit different because it's customized to the sales receipt. So it'll look much the same because the sales receipt and invoice will be much the same except for the form of payment, meaning we haven't gotten paid with the invoice yet. We have with the sales receipt. So once again, if we wanted to add the logo, we can select the logo, we can find our logo and basically put that on up top. We've got the formatting. So if we wanted a color scheme, we can select the color scheme. We can then adjust the formatting of some of these standard fields in the basic layout, such as if I went to the company name and then we said we want to change it and maybe we want to make the company name larger. So we'll make it really large on the company name. We'll underline it. We'll make it red. And then I'm going to say, okay. So now we have the company name very large up top. And now obviously it's kind of overlapping some of the other information on it, which we can remove basically the address if we don't need it, or we can do more customization to that information in the layout designer down here. Also note that if you use this item to apply a color scheme, then you may not have as much options with the color scheme on this default area, but once again, you can change that with the layout designer down below. So then down below, we can have the company name that we can add or decrease or take away just with the checkbox. The address, now notice if I make this large, I might basically remove the address here, and now that works if I don't want the address on the form, or I can move the address, which we can see in the layout. So I'm going to put it back on there, and then I'll go into this layout designer later and we'll move it from there. Fax number, if we want to add the fax number, phone number, email, website, and so on and so forth, this will be added in a similar way as we saw with the invoice. If we want to update the information, then this is basically our company information. By selecting this item here, then we can update the company information. This will typically be put in place, or most of it, much of it, when you set up the company file, like the address and whatnot, and this in contact information or company information. Okay, print status stamp, we can have that on or off as well. So those are going to be the basic type of options. You have the same kind of preview option over here, so you can test out what it looks like in a preview screen. This is what it would print out like. Closing this back out, then we have the additional customization. So if I go to the additional customizations, once again, we're still on those standard set customizations for people that aren't designers at this point. And then we'll go to this area, which is more for designers. So you have these default settings. So default title, sales receipt. This is where you could change it to something like donation if you're a charity or something like that and you're using it for that function. So I can say okay, and then you'd see that change up top. So I'm going to change it back to sales receipt. So I'm not sure, hopefully I spelled that right, sales receipt. And then once again, date, and you can have the items that are on the screen or items that will be printed. So either on screen or printed. There might be some items that you want to see on your screen but not be printed. Sales number, we got the sold to, shipped to, check number. So now we have some of these are different because now we got paid different from the invoice, in other words, because now we're getting paid for it. So the check number would be the check number from the customer if we have one. If we're not getting paid with checks, then maybe we don't want that field there at all. So we might remove the check number if they're paying us in some other way, shape, or form. Or maybe I just don't want the check number on there. So the payment method, we could basically have that on the form or not. Maybe we want the payment method on our side, but not to be printed possibly. And then the due date, so maybe we want the due date on the form, although the due date, might not be as relevant for this form because obviously we're getting paid at the same point in time. Typically the rep, account number, ship date, so maybe we want the ship date on there, or at least on our side, possibly on both sides, so that's well known if there's something if it's applicable. And then same kind of things, other, and again, we can change the names on the right-hand side. The columns, if we go to the columns, then we have our settings. So if we wanted to add, say, the item here, we can add the item. Once again, we have the screen and the print settings. So we have, usually the item is on our screen because it's like an abbreviation. And then we may want just a description on the company side, but we can add the item. We can adjust the order of these things as well. So maybe I want, say, the description before the item, but I still want the item on there. I could say that's going to be number 1. And then this one's going to change to number 2 there. And so then you can change the name, of course. Maybe you don't want to call it item. Maybe you want to call it, serial number or something like that. And then the description of the thing, you could make another title for the description. The quantity, maybe you want to list the full name for the quantity. The rate, so maybe you can adjust the rate, and then the total amount is always going to be on the last column because you need to basically sum that up to line up to the total column down here. The footer, we have the footer information. You can add a long footer if you would like to here. To put in some customization, it'll show up down here in the text box, similar to the invoice. And then you have your printing options, standard options, or if you want to customize the printing down below. So those are going to be the standard kind of options. Then you've got the layout designer options. So if you go out into the layout designer options, these are the more advanced options that could be useful, especially if you kind of download. If you're good at it, you can do your own customized sales receipt from here, and you can start practice with this. If you have practice with internet tools for website design building type of tools, then this might be something that you're good at, and then you can use this to customize your forms. If you have basic skills, like me, you're not a designer expert, you might know enough to be able to pick up an invoice that's pre-designed, which we'll do next time, and then use your designer skills here to basically adjust it to what you want on your invoice. So you can take a custom invoice or sales receipt, in this case that was made by a professional, and then make minor changes to it to bring it to what you want. So for example, I can move the text up top. So I grabbed the wrong thing. I'm going to go ahead and undo that. I'm trying to move this field here, and then I'm going to undo that. I'm going to move this field over so that we have now our text field. Let's expand that. I'm going to expand that down. So that would be our company name, and right, you can move these fields over and adjust them. Now I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I spent a little bit more time on it with the invoice. So if you've got questions just on how to navigate through this field, you can see my somewhat, obviously very limited in terms of how to use the thing or to apply it to its best potential, but how to use these items up top in the invoice presentation. But you have a lot more leeway to make any adjustments in this setting. So take a look at that presentation. And then next time, of course, our next option is to download one that has already been set up to be different than the standard here. And if you're talking about a charity, then you might want to download a pre-set up donation type of form and then use that to start your customization from. So if we just close this one out, I'm going to say close that out, and let's go take a look at it. I'm going to close it. I'm going to say okay, and save those excellent changes. And then I'm going to go back to the home page, and let's create a sales receipt now. And so now we have our drop down up top. We have the custom sales receipt and then the new receipt. And this is our template that we put together. Data input, a little bit different, but much the same up top. We have our custom message that we can add another custom message basically down below if we want on that. And then if I wanted to preview by going to the print and then the preview, so there we have it. Again, it needs some it needs some work up top, but that's how you can start to adjust these forms. So next time we'll see a similar thing we did with the invoice, where we can think about the pre-designed forms and then download those, and then you can kind of tweak those forms to customize them to your company needs.